Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker with an oolong today. Now, oolongs are still getting press, a reputation for being diet tea, and that's not really what they're all about, at least not originally. There's a lot of value, a lot of enjoyment that comes from the actual taste experience. And again, I broaden that concept of taste experience much wider than what's often thought of. And what you see I'm doing here is I've got a oolong. It's a nice roll, kind of partially crumpled, partially kind of twisted vein there, along the middle of the vein, I mean. But I fill up enough to cover the bottom inch of my 4-ounce gaiwan. Water's been brought to a boil. It's been cooling, a very low boil, so that just is starting to rumble. It's been cooling for about a minute, a little over a minute, and I'm going to add enough water here to, I want a little bit of water to sit above the edge of the lid when I put it on. Let's see if that's going to work. Yes, it is. That looks good. That creates a seal, prevents the liquor from changing color change due to exposure to air. Just like if you cut open an apple that will brown, there's some color change that can happen to your tea as it's exposed to air. So, introducing this tea first. This is from Canton Tea Company, which is a UK-based company. This is their RoastedTGY, in parentheses, LongJuan. And information on Canton Tea's website tells us that you can get 25 grams for $15.78 currently. I also know from the product page, this is a 2009 autumn harvest. Don't let the year difference or the time pass that think that it's going to that this not fresh, I should say. With oolongs, they can generally last a little bit longer because they've gone through a richer firing process that preserves them, and a well-crafted oolong, the higher the grade you go, generally they keep, and some can actually they can age, become more valued, become mellower and richer with age. And I also was able to find on the product page this the name LongJuan comes from the LongJuan town or area in the LongJuan region, yes, of Anxi in Fujian province of China. So that's where the LongJuan comes from. So I'm going to be talking about this tea, looking as usual at the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. The heat building up, the hot air has pushed this lid around a little bit, so I want to kind of push it back into place. It'll probably slide around again, but that's okay. First off, I want to get a smell of the aroma here. This tea is labeled or described as a roasted tea, and that immediately comes out. There's nice, smooth, roasted notes, like toasted notes, like close to a Cheerio type of note. So there is a toasted grain aspect coming out there, which if you are more familiar with tigwanyans that are more of a lighter roast, these can be richer, more sweet caramel type. Again, with that toasted oat or grain type aspect, which may be something that a lot of people graduate up from. They may do the more greener, more floral at first, but then they graduate up to something like this. They actually start craving this aspect, that caramel type and toasted grain, more than the earlier floral greens. Looking at these leaves, darker brown, a little bit of a seal brown, some kind of bister, that kind of brownish gray at one extreme. Everything else is moving towards that. You do have a little bit more of a brown with a tinge of olive drab type of green. So again, richer, more toasted type colors here, roasted type colors. Not tightly wound or wrapped paper wads, but something kind of in between a tightly spherical paper wad and that usual kind of twisted down the middle vein of the leaf, wiry, squiggly type shape. So you get some that are shapes that are, you can tell these leaves if they were unfurled, they'd be an inch or more in length, an inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches at most. At a glance, these look like individual leaves, not leaf sets rolled together or crumpled together. So that's our initial look at the leaves there. I'm going to go ahead and pour now so I can kind of open up those leaves and look at them in a wet leaf form. And to do that, I'm going to angle my lid over to the side so I've got a pouring area of air place for this liquor to flow. I'm going to pour it just like so, nice and quickly. You want to hold the edges, you want as little contact as possible between your fingertips and the edge of this bowl or this gaiwan, because there's a lot of heat that's built up in there. So with this liquor sitting here for just a moment, I'm going to check out this wet leaf here. Now, at this point, I've had Tiguanines roasted teas that had more of a toasted aspect coming out in the wet leaf. This one's kind of, it has some roasting, yet it's still giving off traces. You can tell that this had a floral aspect to it. But it's been heated, it's been warmed up. So this is something in between that kind of toasty, Cheerio, toasted grain aspect, and again something a little bit of kind of not quite jammy, not backing off from a peach type note, moving towards a little bit lighter floral aspects. A little bit of sweet pea maybe coming out there. So yes, a bit more of that, I would say a deeper toasted, if you could say a toasted flour, that would be close to what we're getting here. Okay, let me look at some of these leaves a little bit, talk about them some. Opening up one here, you can see that this leaf is around 2 inches, inch and a half. Feeling the leaves, they've got a bit of a thickness to them. They're a little bit of pliancy there. Actually, a good bit. They don't actually just rip apart. So that's got a little bit of resiliency, a little bit of suppleness to them. What else do we have here? Let me pull out. The way they were rolled here, you can tell that it did affect the edges, so that they did get kind of ragged, at least in that leaf, for example. Most of these leaves have also unfurled quite a bit, indicating that that compared to a more densely, tightly rolled, that will give off more of its intensity, its flavor and aroma after subsequent steepings. This one probably gave off more in the first one than one of those tightly rolled, balled type oolongs. Okay, let's see. We have more of the same leaves that are not fully intact, mostly intact. Maybe the tip of it has been torn off. Ragged edges, perhaps from the rolling process where they're crumpled up. Plus the heat that's applied, so you've got some kind of jagged, you've got some edges that are not packed densely into a tight roll, so they got exposed to the heat a little bit more, they dried out a little faster, they got cooked a little more than the central body of that leaf, maybe flaked off, dried off, got a little too crispy. So, putting this to the side for just a moment, I'm going to go ahead now and talk a little bit about this liquor. Give it a swirl here, hold it up, and notice that it's got it's not quite an amber type color. This is a little bit closer to a kind of a wheat beer, an apple juice type color. It's again kind of a golden yellow brown type color there. Let's go ahead and pour it. Light aroma coming off. Again, so hints that this has some toasty nut aspect to it, but still has a light, gentle floral / fruity. It's somewhere in between. It's not quite peachy. It's not yet not quite floral either. It's like this used to have kind of an English laurel type smell or aroma to it, as it was greener, but yet some of that's been converted, honeyed maybe. This one's, oh, this is in the nether regions between a little bit of honey roasted peanut, but it's light. A little bit of that toasted oat, but it's faint. A little bit of that English laurel, but you really got to work to pick it out. So it's a little bit of lots of stuff, but not quite anything. That's my first reaction. Now, let me give it another shot here. Sometimes teas like this, as they cool, they draw a little bit more can come out of it. Okay, I've got a low pour, or not much left here in this cup, so it should cool fairly quickly. Okay, on the front, as I'm swirling this around in my mouth, these aromas are traveling up into my nose, and so I get this impression, oh, this is going to be nice, this is going to be rich. And yet as it hits the middle of my mouth, I'm looking for a lot of what I'm looking for in an oolong is texture. There should be something kind of beef broth type of brothiness, thickness, a little bit of thickness to it. This one, it announces that I'm going to have that, and yet it doesn't deliver it. Aftertaste, again, I get the impression that there's a little bit of that there, but it drops off. It's so weak and it's so brief that what you're left more with is this kind of watery, there used to be something there kind of aspect to this. So I'm conflicted. This tea to me is a tease. It announces so much potential that it's going to offer, that it's going to bring, that it's going to deliver, and yet as you slow down and try to savor it, especially the texture, especially a residual aftertaste, it doesn't carry, it doesn't bring that along. Subsequent steepings, I found off camera, steeping it, first steeping, second, third steeping. This was consistent. It never did really build up and deliver. It never was all it could be. So I'd have to give this tea an 86. I mean, it's got some it's got some nice qualities to it. It's a nice flash of a tea that you find some things to enjoy, but not the staying power. So come back to Walker Tea Review to find those teas with a staying power that you're going to love.